Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Now, let's begin today's emotional story, asterisk. I never imagined that one careless glance could put a 20-year friendship at risk. My name is Ethan, and for as long as I could remember, Daniel had been more than just my best friend. We met when we were 12 years old. We played on the same soccer team, got into trouble together at school, celebrated birthdays together, and even helped each other through the hardest moments of life. When my father passed away, Daniel stayed beside me every single day. When Daniel lost his first job, I helped him pay his rent until he got back on his feet. People used to joke that we were brothers who happened to have different parents. Years passed, and life slowly changed. Daniel built a successful business and married the woman of his dreams. Her name was Emily. She wasn't only beautiful, she was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel comfortable. She smiled with kindness, spoke with respect, and never acted as though she was better than anyone else. From the very first day we met, she welcomed me like family. Because of that, I always made sure to respect my boundaries. She was my best friend's wife. Nothing more. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. One Friday evening, Daniel invited me to his house for dinner. "Come over around 7, he said over the phone. "We're having a few friends over." It sounded like every other weekend. When I arrived, the house was already full of people. Soft music played through the speakers. Children laughed while running through the backyard. The smell of grilled steak and fresh bread filled the air. Daniel greeted me with a big hug. "There he is," he laughed. "I was starting to think you'd forgotten about us." I smiled. "You know I'd never miss your cooking." He laughed even harder. "Actually, Emily did most of it." A few seconds later, Emily walked into the room carrying a tray of drinks. She wore a simple dark blue dress. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive looking, yet somehow, everyone turned to look at her as she entered. She smiled politely and handed everyone a drink before stopping beside me. "I'm glad you made it," she said warmly. "It's been a while." "It has," I replied. "I've been buried in work." She nodded with understanding. "You should work a little less." I laughed. "I'll try." She smiled once more before walking away. There was nothing unusual about the conversation. Nothing that should have stayed in my mind. But for some reason, it did. Throughout the evening, I kept noticing small things. Every time someone asked Emily how she was doing, she smiled. But her smile disappeared the second they looked away. Whenever Daniel walked into another room, she seemed strangely quiet. She laughed, but her eyes never did. I couldn't explain why I noticed these things. Maybe because I'd known Daniel for so long. Maybe because I had learned to notice when something wasn't right. Or maybe, because I was paying far more attention than I should have. As everyone gathered around the dining table, conversations filled the room. People talked about vacations, business, family, sports. Daniel proudly spoke about a new project that could change his company forever. Everyone congratulated him. Everyone, except Emily. She simply smiled and looked down at her plate. That was the moment I looked at her again. Only for a second, then another. Before I realized it, she looked directly back at me. Our eyes met. Neither of us looked away immediately. Then she slowly stood from her chair. "I'll get more drinks," she said softly. No one paid attention. As she walked behind my chair, she leaned slightly closer. Without stopping, without changing the expression on her face, she whispered just 6 words. "I know what you're thinking." Time stopped. Every sound around me disappeared. My heart began pounding so loudly I thought everyone at the table could hear it. What did she mean? Did she think I had feelings for her? Had she noticed me looking at her? Or was she trying to tell me something far more dangerous? I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. She continued walking toward the kitchen as though nothing had happened. Daniel kept laughing with his guests, completely unaware that 6 whispered words had just shaken my entire world. I forced myself to smile, but inside, everything had. The drive home felt longer than it had ever been before. The city lights blurred through my windshield as Emily's whisper echoed over and over inside my head. Asterisk, I know what you're thinking. Asterisk. Those 6 words refused to leave me alone. I turned the radio off. The silence somehow felt even louder. Stop thinking about it, I whispered to myself. You're imagining things. But deep inside, I knew I wasn't. The look in her eyes had been real. She hadn't smiled. She hadn't looked angry either. It was almost as if she wanted me to understand something she couldn't say out loud. By the time I reached my apartment, it was almost midnight. I dropped my keys onto the kitchen counter and walked straight to the window overlooking the city. Normally after spending time with Daniel, I'd leave smiling. Tonight, I felt guilty, not because I had done anything wrong, but because I couldn't stop replaying that moment in my mind. I barely slept. Every hour I woke up and checked the time. 3:30, 4:15, 5 o'clock. When my alarm finally rang, I was already awake. I made myself a cup of coffee, hoping it would clear my thoughts. Before I could take my first sip, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name that immediately tightened my chest. Daniel, asterisk. I answered on the second ring. Hey, his voice sounded different, tired, heavy, almost broken. Ethan, can you come over? There was a long pause. I really need you. My heart skipped a beat. What happened? Another silence. Then he quietly replied, I don't want to talk on the phone. Please, just come. 20 minutes later I pulled into his driveway. The house looked strangely quiet. No music, no children playing outside, no smell of breakfast. Daniel opened the front door before I even knocked. The confident businessman everyone admired was gone. His eyes were red. His beard hadn't been shaved. His shoulders seemed to carry years of exhaustion. Without saying a word, he hugged me. Not the quick hug friends usually give each other. This one lasted several seconds. As if he was afraid of falling apart. We sat on the back porch. For nearly 2 minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, Daniel stared into his untouched coffee and whispered, I think I'm losing my marriage. Those words hit me harder than I expected. What do you mean? He sighed deeply. I don't recognize Emily anymore. She's distant. She barely talks. She avoids me. I keep asking what's wrong. But every single time she tells me she's just tired. He rubbed his face with both hands. I've tried everything. Vacations, flowers, date nights. Nothing changes. I listened quietly, because for the first time, everything I had noticed at dinner suddenly made sense. The fake smiles, the empty eyes, the silence. Daniel looked at me with desperate hope. You've always been good at reading people. Did you notice anything? My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him about the whisper. But something stopped me. I couldn't explain why. Instead I slowly answered, she did seem distracted. Daniel nodded. I knew it. Then he looked straight into my eyes. If she's hiding something, I need to know. At that exact moment, the back door opened. Emily stepped outside carrying another cup of coffee. The instant she saw me sitting beside Daniel, she froze. Only for a second. Then she forced the same polite smile she had worn the previous evening. Good morning, she said softly. Neither of us answered immediately. For one brief moment, our eyes met again, and this time, I wasn't imagining it. There was fear in her eyes. Real fear. Fear that Daniel must never discover what had happened the night before. Daniel stood up, completely unaware of the silent conversation happening between us. I'm going inside to answer a work call, he said. You two talk for a minute. The moment the door closed behind him, Emily took a slow step toward me. She lowered her voice. You didn't tell him. I looked at her in disbelief. What exactly am I supposed to tell him? She swallowed nervously. Not here. Not now. Please, just trust me. Before I could ask another question, Daniel's footsteps echoed from inside the house. Emily quickly walked away, leaving me standing there with even more questions than before. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure whether protecting my best friend meant telling him everything, or keeping a secret that I didn't even understand. I remained on the porch long after Emily walked away. My mind refused to settle. Every instinct told me something serious was happening inside that house. But I still didn't know whether I was looking at a marriage falling apart, or something much darker. Daniel returned a few minutes later with an apologetic smile. Sorry, he said. Work never leaves me alone. I forced a smile. It's okay. He sat beside me again, staring into the backyard where the morning breeze gently moved the trees. You know, he said quietly, people think success solves everything. I looked at him, but they don't see what happens after the meetings end. He let out a tired laugh. I built a company worth millions. I bought the house Emily always dreamed about. I gave her everything I thought she wanted. His smile disappeared, but somehow, I lost the ability to make her smile. Those words stayed with me. For years I had admired Daniel's life. From the outside it looked perfect. But sitting beside him that morning, I realized perfection can be an illusion. Inside the house, Emily called us for breakfast. The table was filled with pancakes, fresh fruit, eggs, and coffee. It looked like a perfect family morning. Yet the silence between Daniel and Emily was impossible to ignore. They barely looked at each other. Whenever one of them spoke, the other answered with only a few words. It felt less like a husband and wife sharing breakfast, and more like two strangers pretending everything was fine. After breakfast, Daniel received another business call and stepped into his home office. Emily quietly collected the empty plates. Without thinking, I stood up. Let me help. She hesitated for a moment before nodding. We carried the dishes into the kitchen without saying a word. The silence became unbearable. Finally, I spoke. Emily. She stopped washing a glass but didn't turn around. You scared me yesterday. She closed her eyes for a second. I know. What did you mean? Another long silence. Then she whispered, I wasn't talking about feelings. I frowned. What? She slowly faced me. I saw the way you were watching me. You weren't looking at me because you wanted me. You were trying to figure out why I looked unhappy. I couldn't deny it, because she was right. She continued speaking. You noticed what everyone else ignored. Tears slowly filled her eyes. I've been pretending everything is okay for months. I looked toward Daniel's office. Does he know? She shook her head. No. Why not? Because every time I try, he blames himself. I don't want him carrying another burden. Her voice cracked. I love my husband. I've never stopped loving him. Those words surprised me. If she still loved Daniel, then why did their marriage seem so broken? She took a deep breath. I've been hiding something from everyone. My heart started beating faster. What is it? She looked down at the floor. I've been seeing doctors for months. The room suddenly felt smaller. I didn't tell Daniel because his company has been under enormous pressure. I kept telling myself I'd wait until the right time. But the right time never came. She wiped away a tear. And now, I'm terrified. Before I could ask another question, Daniel called from the office. Emily? She quickly dried her eyes. I'm coming. As she walked toward the hallway, she quietly said one final sentence. Please don't judge me until you know everything. Then she disappeared. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the half-filled sink. The mystery had only grown deeper. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't betrayal. It was something far more painful. But I still had no idea what secret she had been carrying all this time. And deep down, I feared that